Hello everyone, I'm Jane and here we are for a new video of my DbD opinions and other similar topics. In this case, we are gonna react to the MMR discussion that kept the community busy during this week, and I'm gonna try to understand and to explain what, in my opinion, has been said, like the real meaning of some words that probably have been misunderstood, and at the same time some things that in general I'm really critical about, because I think that giving a useful feedback, positive or negative, is the way to allow a team to actually fix possible problematic situations, because only raising the forks, I think that will not bring anyone to anywhere, because every too aggressive opinion everywhere usually doesn't really work when it's about sharing a feedback. So I tried to understand some topics. I tried to look at this after days. I tried to even look at some reactions on the social medias, on other YouTube videos, and I wanted to look at everything together with you, like commenting every word and every sentence in almost real time, so that we can try to understand, we can try to explain why we don't agree with some points, or my personal point of view about Dead by Daylight MMR in general. In a previous video, I already explained that I think that the MMR for what DbD was becoming because of the community was almost a necessary step. Why do I say this? Because before you get mad at me too. Because you had situations where you had people going for really long streaks at winning against survivors or killers who weren't expert as the player who actually showed their impressive records. So, if for example your killer really aims at winning, like with the full slowdown build, I think that it's fair that you find a survivor friend who plays optimal and plays around all your tricks, because if you just want easy games with a full competitive build or a full slowdown build with a really strong killer like maybe it's Nurse and Blight, like I don't think that it should be a thing. So in that sense, I think that MMR is an idea that can actually help matching sweats with sweats, let's say in this way. Like people who really aim at winning with other people who really aim at winning. I still think that there is a bit of discrepancy, especially during some timing during the day. Like for example, everyone know that during evening hours, at least here in Europe, there is something that allows to find people who can be a bit more chill, or who are a bit newer with the game. I think that everyone can agree about that, and how during night hours the situation is the complete opposite one. So I still think that it should be fair that if you are a killer who really wants to win, who really aims at winning, who really use everything that a killer can go for, so tunneling, camping, slowdown build, endgame build, every possible strongest add-ons, even more in some situation, it's fair if you find a survivor friend with a lot of escapes who plays really optimal around this stuff. So in that situation, I don't feel like attacking a system like MMR. It should be a thing in the game. At the same time, there are some things about the MMR system that have been said, not about the MMR system by itself, but about the concept of winning and skill, that I wanted to share personally during this video. And I wanted to take the opportunity of this Q&A, because I think that there are a lot of things that actually, in my opinion, can be more helpful to focus on what's problematic or not. And I want to start from the words of the developers. So let's try to understand why, what, and how the MMR works, more or less. Let's go.
I've got some notes here, but I'm desperately trying to keep it brief. So I'll please understand I am simplifying some things here. Don't read too much into every detail I'm saying. I'm trying to keep this brief. But there's a common misconception that by using just kills and escapes to adjust your MMR, it's ignoring skill in the game. This isn't the truth, though. This is false. Kills and escapes are proxies for skill, in that skilled play inherently leads to kills or escapes.
So they are saying that it's not true that the skill in Dead by Daylight is fully based on kills and escapes. And this is a point that it's present here. I want to listen it again because I think that it's really important because they actually say this.
Understand I am simplifying some things here. Don't read too much into every detail I'm saying. I'm trying to keep this brief. But there's a common misconception that by using just kills and escapes to adjust your MMR, it's ignoring skill in the game.
So it say that this, so considering kills and escapes as MMR and everything is a misconception. So, or at least considering this for skill is a misconception. Let's keep listening.
This isn't the truth, though. This is false. Kills and escapes are proxies for skill.
So they say that kills and escapes are proxies for skill. So in a certain sense, they say that it's a sort of indicator that they found for trying to understand the skill of the player. And this is a rough topic because actually we are gonna see later what they mean with this. Let's keep listening and then we come back to this point.
That skilled play inherently leads to kills or escapes. Think about sports, and I'll use hockey as an example because I'm Canadian. You wouldn't say they only count wins when placing teams in the standings, but they should also count shots on goal too. A more skilled player takes more shots, and while that's certainly true, it's important to remember that shots lead to goals, which lead to wins. So you can kind of cut the middleman out there. And that's the key, right? Skilled play leads to wins. If they don't, are they really skilled plays? Right? If your skilled play doesn't get you to win, was it really a skilled play in the first place? Everything leads to the same place in DbD.
Okay, they made the example of sports, and I'm a woman of sports as well. I'm a huge football fan, and there are some things that I want to say about the example because in certain situations it's true. Like, for example, you're a football player and you take the wood instead of the net when you shoot to the other. When you are a shooter and you try to score a goal against the opponent team, like if you take the wood instead of the net, it's not a goal; it's still a missed shot. In this case, I think it's true. Like, okay, even if you shoot 20 times against you, and 19 times this is not a goal, it's not something you can say, okay, you won the game only because you shot more than your opponent. Also because you have to consider how you shoot, to be honest, in a football game. Because if you try to shoot from your side of the field and it's like a really impossible shot and you like shoot really high, it still counts as a shoot, but it's a missed shoot, of course. But I don't know if this example fits Dead by Daylight, and fits sports in general as well. Because the thing is that, for example, you are a survivor who has a really good chase. You are actually going for what is possible to be considered as a goal, not as a shoot. If your teammates do the generators and all of them escape, you are shooting a goal, you are the MVP of the game. And I think that this should be a clear example of how to try to make this example of sport fitting in DbD. A good chase is a skill-based play, and it's considerable as a goal. It's considerable as something that helps the team. Then it's up to the team to get value from your chase. Let's try to understand the thing. We can, instead of speaking of goals, we can speak about goalkeeper. Goalkeeper is one of the roles in football that I prefer because, it's always a role where if you do bad, your team pays for it. If you miss a really easy block and you get a goal because of that, you make your team lose. At the same time, you can go for being like the MVP of the game, like blocking a lot of impossible shots, trying to save your team at every possible situation. But then, you can block 20 shots, but at the 21 you can do nothing because you are alone against the two strikers of the opponent team, and your team still lose. And who has the fault for that? It's not your fault. Like, you played the best game of your life, but you are. It's a sport team. It's a team-based game. Like, how can you blame yourself for losing the game if your strikers don't go for the goals, if your defenders are not really good at defending your area? So, and this is kind of similar to a good chaser in Dead by Daylight. You are doing your job, you are trying to stand as long as possible against this killer in a chase. But if your teammates is not able to get value from it, if your teammates is not able at defending you when it's needed, is it your fault if you lose your game? And this is why this example should be a bit more balanced around DbD. Another thing, we are speaking about winning in this case, but skill, like if you have to rate someone basing it on skill, you have to consider, you cannot just consider the wins. You cannot just do that. And especially a sportman person or sportwoman person knows of that really well. Let's take, for example, World Cups or European Championship. I speak of European Championship because these are the ones I follow the most. But, for example, Zlatan Ibrahimovic or Robert Lewandowski, both of them play for... one of them plays for Sweden, the other one plays for Poland. And you know that... sorry. You know that Sweden and Poland are not two top team in when it's about nation against other nation in football. But you cannot deny that they are really skilled at what they are doing. Like, you cannot deny that Ibrahimovic is probably one of the best football players in the world, or that Lewandowski is one of the best strikers in the whole Europe and in the whole world. But it's a team-based play, and Poland and Sweden, unfortunately for them, are not of the same level of other nations. Like, I don't know. Now it's really hard to speak about it because it's kind of balanced. As France, let's speak about France because France is the one that you can say in general that is one of the strongest. It's true that France can lose their game too, but the value of the team of France is not the same of the other countries I spoke about, unfortunately for them. This doesn't mean that Sweden and Poland cannot win against France, but look at Switzerland during Euro 2020. But, I mean, it's not up to the single player making the team winning the World Championship. This is what I'm trying to explain. Like, it's a team-based play. Everyone has to play their own role. And in a game like Dead by Daylight, where you have 1 against 4, especially when you have to take the matchmaking, the skill-based matchmaking for only one of the 4 players of the other team, you have to consider the single person. And basing it only on escape or death, especially if their death is the one that allows the whole team to actually make it, to actually escape. So it's a win for your team, but it's a loss for yourself. This conception of is it a skill-based play if it doesn't lead to a win, it's a bit dangerous. And I get where they are trying to go. Like, the matchmaking system is an automated system. Of course, there's no one who's looking at every Dead by Daylight game to say, oh, this person had a great chase, so this person should grow up. This person had a bad chase, so this person should rank, should go lower with rank. In all of these kind of discussions, it's not possible to go for that. So the easiest way to find what they call the proxies value to look at this is actually escape and deaths because and kills, because you are like, okay, my play allowed me to get the point that allowed me to win the game. I don't know if I'm clear enough, but I think that the two main steps are, first of all, trying to make to see the difference between winning and skill in the game, because we are not going for a winning matchmaking system, but on a skill-based matchmaking system. And I get what they meant. They explained that the system is able to recognize as a skill something that leads to a win. So the win is the proxy to try to understand your skill. Like, this player won, probably they did something good to get the victory. But all of us know that Dead by Daylight is a so complex game where a win can be based on a lot of different factors. And that's the truth. And at the same time, winning, especially when you speak about Survivor, is a really complex topic. It's a really complex topic because you don't know how to say if a Survivor is winning or not at this point. Is your personal escape the winning, or is your team escaping, like having a 3-man escape, your win? And we know that the game is not able to recognize your win as your whole team escaping. Because if I die and I leave the lobby, my value is already considered by the game. It's kinda interesting because we are looking at this mainly from a killer point of view, and it's fine. We are gonna see it later again. But what about the survivor? You dying, but allowing all of your team escaping. Is that a skill-based play or not? Because it was a win for your victory, for your team, but it was a loss on your personal point of view because you died. So what's the kind of play style that actually is considered skill-based by the game? This is what I care more about. What's considered skill-based by the game? And what's the influence of this on the community? This is what made me more worried during the whole stream. Because if we reduce everything at this will push the community at keep working at getting the easier way to achieve the victory. In a point where skill will be less and less important. And builds, playstyles, especially from a killer point of view, especially from a survivor point of view, if you start working with a survivor friend and not in solo queue, we know how solo queue is. This can create a meta that is not really healthy for the game. Let's keep listening what's going on.
Killing survivors or the survivors escaping alive. That's what MMR predicts. The chances of the killer killing survivors or them escaping alive. And it is actually very good at doing that. However, we're looking at some improvements to the current system. An example to take is to take team results into account for survivors in addition to the personal results. This takes some time. We have to iterate on. There's lots of fun math, which I could again talk about forever. But we need to prove it out that it's working, that there's value in it, and correlations, so on. More details on that will more details on skill-based matchmaking in general are actually in our last dev blog post as well.
Okay.
So, actually, he addressed what I said before. That if you are a survivor, your play allows the whole team to escape. At the moment, it's like it's not considered, but they are working to make it a valuable stuff to be considered for the matchmaking system. So, recognizing the value of a survivor playing well to allow the team winning, and even if they die, because playing survivor is not only about surviving, it's also about making other people surviving. And this is a really important point, because if the message was you have to survive to be a good survivor, this will create, especially in solo queue, a really messy situation. But I'm happy that they addressed the point. So a lot of the things that made us worried were actually answered by them even before we went for it. Like, we took the most problematic sentences and worked around this. So I think that the main problem here is communication more than the system itself. So maybe a lot of the things that make us worried are already solved and everything, but at the same time, we didn't have a really perfect explanation of that. Then they say that, as I said before, kills and escapes are based only as a measure of predicting how many times are you gonna escape again, or how many times you are gonna kill other players as a killer. And they say that it's doing it kinda well. And honestly, I don't know, because I think it can be true. I think it can be true. People who are playing optimal and optimal are finding actually a team who plays optimal. And the survivor friends who plays optimal are finding that kind of killer who's trying to play optimal. So, can we say that the matchmaking system is not working at that point? It's a really complex situation, in my opinion.
Okay. We have a similar question, not directly similar, but pretty close, from Jeff Alip, who asks, why don't hooks count towards your rating?
Yeah, this is a great example of what I was just talking about a minute ago, in a specific case that we did consider and look at and think about quite a bit. The thing with counting hooks is that you end up with weird cases that don't make sense when you take it to its extremes. Say you're a killer who hooked every survivor twice, but none of them died. If you count those hooks towards your rating, then you can easily end up in a situation where that scenario counts as a win, like moves you up the standings, but that feels weird. Did you really win? Should your rating go up and make you face stronger opponents, even though all of the survivors got out alive? That, probably not, right? That's like an obvious moment of like, it doesn't really compute. It also doesn't make sense for the survivors. If you call that a killer win, that would mean the survivors lost, but they all got out alive. So that feels weird to call that a loss on the survivor side, unless you start saying that everybody in that situation wins. And then as soon as you can have everybody in a game winning, you get some really weird math, some really crazy stuff starts happening really, really fast. So that's part of why we boil it down to kills and escapes as a proxy for good play in the game. It solves all those problems, and it solves a whole bunch of other ones that I'm just not going to get into now, because I think we have like one or two other questions to get into.
Yeah, one of the trickiest parts of a system like this.
This is an important point, but we have to get everything of the point, because this is the most problematic thing that they say they do in the stream, in my opinion, for making people angry, or when not angry, skeptic, like in my case. because I was skeptic when I heard this.
This is that you need to clear win and loss. Because if both sides can win, you end up in a situation where ranks just endlessly climb, and then eventually the matchmaking system can't really give you a match because everyone's at like some astronomical rating.
Opinions has explained perfectly what the developer was trying to say. I don't know if they are keep going on with other discussion with the MMR now, but if not, we are gonna rewatch this and listen opinions.
Okay, so getting into a completely different question, we have a question.
Okay, let's go back. Please listen everything and pay attention to proxy.
Addition to the personal results. This takes some time. We have to iterate on. There's lots of fun math, which I could again talk about forever. But we need to prove it out that it's working, that there's value in it, and correlations, so on. More details on that will more details on skill-based matchmaking in general are actually in our last dev blog post as well.
Okay, we have a similar question, not directly similar, but pretty close, from Jeff Philippe, who asks, "Why don't hooks count towards your rating?"
Yeah, this is a great example of what I was just talking about a minute ago, in a specific case that we did consider and look at and think about quite a bit. The thing with counting hooks is that you end up with weird cases that don't make sense when you take it to its extremes. Say you're a killer who hooked every survivor twice, but none of them died. If you count those hooks towards your rating, then you can easily end up in a situation where that scenario counts as a win, like moves you up the standings, but that feels weird. Did you really win? Should your rating go up and make you face stronger opponents even though all of the survivors got out alive? Probably not, right? That's like an obvious moment of like, it doesn't really compute. It also doesn't make sense for the survivors. If you call that a killer win, that would mean the survivors lost, but they all got out alive. So that feels weird to call that a loss on the survivor side, unless you start saying that everybody in that situation wins. And then as soon as you can have everybody in a game winning, you get some really weird math, some really crazy stuff starts happening really, really fast. So that's part of why we boil it down to kills and escapes as a proxy for good play in the game. It solves all those problems, and it solves a whole bunch of other ones that I'm just not going to get into now because I think we have like one or two other questions to get into.
Yeah, one of the trickiest parts of a system like this is that you need to clear win and loss. Because if both sides can win, you end up in a situation where ranks just endlessly climb, and then eventually the matchmaking system can't really give you a match because everyone's at like some astronomical rating.
This is the whole point of the discussion. The whole point of the discussion is that the MMR is not... how can I say? There is a thing I'm really critical about and still skeptic about, because when they say, should you face a stronger opponents after that you got 8 hooks and killed anyone in your killer game, my answer honestly can be yes. Because if you got 8 hooks, even if you didn't kill anyone, it means that you did... the max is... you did 2 out 3 of the possible hooks on everyone. So, if you get 2 hooks and kill 2 people, like the classic example is Booba face camping the first person they find, and you get 2 kills with 2 hooks with just 2 chases, instead of getting 8 hooks with 8 chases that you dominated, I think that yes, you should be able to find stronger opponents, because it means that you need to find someone who's more able than you in chase. Unless we start speaking about a lot of other stuff. But if it's a player who chose to go for chases, yes, I think that probably they needed to go for more chases, for people who are a good challenge in chases. I don't see anything wrong in that. That point aside, that is just a detail on what they said, because actually it's like they are pointing at the moon and we are looking at the finger, because at the end of the day, all the discussion about the MMR is making the matchmaking working, so making people finding matches, is that they don't want to create a situation where both sides are considered as winning. Because if both sides are considered as winning, the matchmaking will get stale. You have a lot of people with the max MMR, and I think that it's even already happening. Because at the end of the day, I see everyone saying, I'm top MMR, I'm top MMR, I'm top MMR. If everyone says that they are top MMR, it means that almost everyone is a top MMR, and this skill-based matchmaking, I mean, what's the whole point of it? But I think that the whole point of what they are trying to say is making people finding matches. And they go for this proxy. They really stressed the whole concept of proxy. They went for this because in this way people can find matches. So the system didn't say if you are good or bad at the game. The system said that if you should find other people who are playing to win or not. To win as killing and escaping. And that's the thing, it's a really messy situation, because actually, my personal opinion about all of this is that I don't know what to say. I don't agree that killing and escaping is the whole skill around the game. But I can see the problem when they speak about math. Because at the end of the day, the whole problem of the MMR is the math. And trying to understand the whole system is kind of messy, and at the same time, I repeat, even if I don't agree with what's considered winning or not, because I repeat, someone who gets 8 hooks means that they got probably 8 chases, not necessary, because if you're camping someone and you insta-pick them and they don't have the S, you didn't really have a chase. But let's imagine someone who's going for more chases. You get 8 really good chases, and 8 hooks. It's not it's not something useless, you know? It means that you outplayed people 8 times in chases. It's not bad at all. Instead of winning with 2 kills and just 2 hooks. I think it's more skill-based, the one who actually got more hooks. So, I don't know. Probably the system can still work on hooks, and as a survivor, it looks at how many hooks you got to give you a score point. Something like that maybe can work. I don't know. Honestly, it's a really tricky situation. My personal opinion is, though, that I would like the game not promoting playstyles that are focused at these two things. Because it's what already happening, actually. The game, at the so-called IMMR, it's a sort of a prophecy that made itself true. Like, I don't know to explain it with simple words, but it's like saying that to win you need the kills and escapes, and the people complaining about the MMR and everything actually pushed people are doing exactly that thing. And I want that kind of situation is avoided in a game like Dead by Daylight, because there are so many factors. It's an asymmetric game. It's a game that should push more for the fun side of it, should push more at playing the variety of stuff that they put in the game. That, honestly, I don't know what to think. Because I repeat, I'm someone who, in a certain moment of the game, thought, guys, there are people who are winning so much that I think that they are facing opponents that are not at their same level. Probably they should find someone who's trying to play to win as well. So in that case, MMR is fine. Like, how many survivors who go in lobbies complain because they find people who play with them super meta build, hardcore tunnel and camp? And isn't our wish to actually find other players who play kind of chill as us, like not really hardcore focusing gens and trying to do some silly plays and stuff like that. Isn't it like our main wish, like a main desire? And this is what I thought MMR could do, and what actually does in some situation. Also making the experience for the new players a bit more welcoming. I don't know. Honestly, I think that the MMR situation, as I said in the other video, was a sort of stuff that the community created by itself, because we showed how the matchmaking was, and we know it, we spoke a lot about it before. The matchmaking was allowing to find people who weren't playing at our, I don't want to say same level, but at our same game. Because if you're playing in a sort of comp way with people who are playing really chill and really casual, you're not playing the same game. And that's all, in my opinion. Like, I would like to know your opinion about it. I know that a lot of people will just like to get rid of the MMR, but I repeat, in that case, we will be back to a situation where we are going to face people who are not playing at our same level. And I know that for us it would be more fun. Oh yeah, I finally have a one chill game and I can go for a win. But is it fun for the new player actually finding the 5k hours player and getting demolished because you know all the matchmaking was allowing this? It's kind of messy. So the summary is I get how the MMR is working. I get that this system is basing itself on on wins, so killing and escapes, to make the matchmaking working instead of creating a situation where you are not able to find gains. But I'm worried that the community will keep focusing this point too much instead of coming back to what used to be DbD, having fun and chilling out. Thank you for passing by. If you agree, disagree, if you think that I'm saying something that is worthy to be listened, if you're saying that I'm saying something that it does totally no sense, please leave a comment and we can speak in a civil way about it. Thank you again. Bye bye.